Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the cause of Jesus Christ around the world. Today we have with us Miss Pam Crank. She works with Free Will Baptist Family Ministries there in Greenville, Tennessee, with the pro-life section, the Pregnancy Support Center, and the Crisis Center. Does so much important work for us there. And so she has been so gracious to take her time and join us today. So thank you so much, Ms. Crank, for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Moody. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, let's start. I know some people are probably wondering what happens at the Hope Center. You've been working there, and we should say before you were at the Hope Center, you worked, I believe, with Richland Pregnancy Support Center in Ohio, 15 years in various areas. And so probably a lot of people are wondering, what does a Pregnancy Support Center do? What does the Hope Center do? Give us a little bit of a feel for what those ministries involve.
Right. That's an excellent question, because sometimes I feel that we're the best kept secret around. But the Hope Center, and we kind of have two ministries going here at the Hope Center. So I like to kind of refer to us as Hope Center Ministries. The one section is we are a crisis pregnancy center, or a pregnancy resource center. You may hear that terminology used as well. And our focus there is to we offer services to individuals who are faced with primarily an unplanned pregnancy. And but that encapsulates a lot because we have a fatherhood program that a lot of people, they don't realize that we have that, because in that whole equation, obviously it takes two. And we all know that how important that fathers are to the family unit. So I love that piece of the program that we have, where we invest in those dads. We have mentor men who come in and they walk alongside of them. I really believe the guys want to be good dads. They just have not had that role model in their life. So we have a program for that. We have a program that mirrors that, where we meet one-on-one with the moms. Everything from the first trimester on to what's going to happen in the delivery room. All topics about parenting, how to be a good parent, how to discipline correctly. And all of our curriculum and education is all from a biblical point of view. That's part of our mission statement, is that we are Christ-centered. And so we really take that to heart. It's not just, what's Pam's point of view on this or what, but what does God's word say about that? And the other arm of what we do is our maternity home, which is Honeysuckle Studios. And we just received our certificate of occupancy in October. We're waiting for God to send us our first resident. But that is a home where if we have a single mom and she's pregnant, and for whatever reason she finds herself in a homeless situation or needing to leave an abusive relationship, she can come there, and Honeysuckle Studios will be a safe haven for her, where she'll be loved on, where she'll be taught life skills that she's going to need to be a good mom, where she may need to learn skills about finding a job, simple as maybe how to complete a resume. She may need help in finding, if she wants to pursue her education, we'll help her with that. So it's almost exactly what of the role of almost a parent would be in helping a child. And so our goal with the women there is that they will be able to live a productive, sustainable life with their child. And so we look for that program. It's not an emergency shelter, so it's not kind of pop in for one night and then I'm gone. But there will be about a 6 to 18 month commitment with that. So both programs are a wonderful program where we're investing in families. We really want to see that family unit strengthened. Sometimes pregnancy centers are accused of being, you just care about the babies. Well, we're a perfect example that's not so. We care about the moms. when you work in this ministry, you quickly learn that if the moms are smart, and they realize that you've got to love them. If we can't love the mom, she's not ever going to give us the opportunity to love that child. So we have to really be woman focused, focus in on her, and then we're going to be able to reach her. And then in turn, by reaching her, we're going to be able to reach that baby and save that baby. And so it's just a win-win when we can focus in on her and get her going in the right direction. So
absolutely. And I'm sure so many of our listeners are learning it's far more than just helping someone in a particular crisis situation, though that's part of it and that's important. But we're talking about the commitment, really a long-term commitment when we think about the Honeysuckle Studio to
absolutely.
Really turn around someone's life. And I love you're focused on dads as well. So it's really a holistic approach, holistic ministry interventions that you all are doing right there in Greenville, Tennessee. That's wonderful, Ms. Crank.
Yes, thank you. I like to say that we meet our clients at their point of need. Whether that we can do, we offer some medical services, we can do the pregnancy testing, we can do ultrasounds. Ultrasound is a very important tool for us. If we can get a mom to have an ultrasound, if she's contemplating an abortion, we find that 85 to 90% will choose life if they have an ultrasound. So that's a very important piece of what we do. But we do focus in on the medical, the material ends. We have a boutique here in-house here at the Hope Center, and that has clothing and pretty much everything that a baby would need its first year. They can get that by working through our program. They earn what we call mommy money or baby bucks. They can take that, spend it in our store, which is supplied by area churches, and people donate in. And so everything in there is either brand new or gently used. And our clients love the baby boutique. And then we have educational, the end of it that I'm a firm believer that whatever goes out the door materially needs to have a piece of education tied to it. And but we do emotional support. A lot of our clients come in with a lot of they've not experienced a good life, and a lot of them are in a bad place in their life at this time. So we work through a lot of trauma cases, and so we provide that emotional support. But then obviously our goal and hope is that someday we'll be able to speak into their lives the spiritual aspect that they need, because we know more than anything that their need is a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so and we also know that they can't stay at the Hope Center forever. So we really want to get them plugged into an area church where the church then can take up that discipleship and just continue to show them love and to grow them. And so we can kind of break this cycle that sometimes that they get into.
Absolutely. So really, like you mentioned earlier, everything you do has a biblical basis to it. So
absolutely
concerned about their physical, emotional, spiritual needs. Even what you're doing as far as teaching, it sure does sound a lot like Titus 2, what we're all instructed to do to older men and older women, teach the younger women and younger men. And you just mentioned in the past trying to get them tied into a local church. What are some things that our churches can do in general to kind of support folks at this particular stage of their lives and this particular type of crisis? What do we need to be focused on in our churches?
I think the main thing is to love them where they are. I think if we're ever going to win this battle and this stigma that we have, Dr. Moody, it's going to be through love and education. A lot of people, I think, are frightened sometimes by what we do, or I just can't be a part of that or do that. But at the end of the day, it's really just loving them where they are. And so, when they go into a church, sometimes their perception isn't really maybe what it is, but it's what they're perceiving, that people are looking at me, they're shaming me, they're judging me. So we just need to always make sure that as a church, we're not saying that maybe what their situation, what they did was correct or right. We're not condoning that, but we're loving them through that. We all have places in our life where it's like, oh, I wish that hadn't happened. I wish I had not made that decision. I think we've all been down that road. And so we need to remember, and I look back at my own life and my very dysfunctional family that I came through. And I think that's where my heart is with so many of these people. I look and I say, but by the grace of God, there go I.
Yes.
So I would always hope that there would be somebody, if it were my granddaughter, would take her in and love her, that like we would here at the Hope Center. Befriend them. If it's a single mom that's coming to your church, take her out to lunch. Offer to babysit. When was the last time that she had a break? Just little things like that. Maybe just a gift card to Starbucks. She can't afford those treats, those kind of things. Love on her little one. You make really fast friends when someone loves on your baby, So a lot of times it's just small things like that the church can do.
That's great. So really, it kind of boils down to attitude, I hear you saying, and actions. So, we're going to love them. We're going to realize God's put them in our path is what I'm sensing from you. And so God takes bad situations, turns them into good, and that we're his hands and feet at that moment. And then you just alluded to a lot of different actions: babysitting, providing gift cards, and I sensed you're also kind of pointing out maybe try to be there for their kids, go to their ball games, or try to make that a possibility for them. Those kinds of opportunities. Now, you also alluded to, I think, a little bit of how you got into this ministry in the first place, because you started out as a volunteer, and then you're on the board, and then you become executive director, I think, back in Ohio there. And you said a little bit about your family. How did you come to be in the position that you find yourself in today?
Okay. I did start as a volunteer. I have always had a heart for, I'm one of those strange people that I've always had a heart for teenagers, love young people and young women. I just see so many of them making bad choices, and they do it time after time, and they get in a rut. And so I love teaching women and just young people in general. They're like sponges at times if you just take the time to really hear their hearts and listen to their stories. And so I worked at a library. I at the time that I got approached about being a volunteer, I was working full-time at a library in a position I loved. But we had a person would come in at the library, and she said, Pam, there is this organization I think you would really be interested in and really be good at and like. And it happened to be the local pregnancy center. So I kept putting it off, but eventually I took the training. I became a client advocate, which there in the center is kind of the first person who meets with the clients when they come in the door. They determine whether they're going to parent, whether they're considering adoption, whether they're considering abortion. And so we kind of we're the first defense, I guess, against that in the pregnancy center. So I was blessed to do that for 3 years. Just to kind of keep a long story short, that door was closed to me due to some health issues of my husband. I could no longer volunteer. So about a year or so after not volunteering, they approached me about being on the board. And that was a whole new experience for me as well. How I really felt kind of like Moses. I'm just like, I'm not qualified. I can't do that. I had all these excuses. And, I kind of said, what do I have to bring to the board? I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, that type of thing. And, I prayed about it, talked to my husband, talked to my pastor about it. And my pastor, my husband, they both just kind of looked at me and said, Pam, it's your passion. It's your passion that you're going to bring. So I did that. And that was, at the time, sometimes we don't see where God is leading us, and kind of, okay, I've been a volunteer. now I'm serving on the board. I did that for 3 years. Then the position of executive director came open, and God just was kind of pounding on my heart and said, you need to apply for this. And so then, now that I look back, I can see how God prepared me, as I had worked in the center as a volunteer. So I knew what that felt like. I knew how I wanted to be treated as a volunteer. And then I also knew what to expect from the board, what their role was and how important that was, and how you need to interact with both of them. So that really prepared me for my role as the executive director there at the center in Richland County. And we were a center that was very kind of stuck, is a good way to put it. We were in a very, very small building. We had no room for growth. We were financially not doing well. So God just kind of brought me along and kind of helped them to expand. We were able to move into a new building that was like triple the size of what we had. We were able to increase our programs. And in doing that, when I believe God sees things happening, then people get excited about that. So the finances came along then. And so it's been a wonderful experience. I was there until 2019. I retired in April of that year. And I know you've kind of heard part of my story there, and we kind of jokingly about it. But I did retire in 2019. My mom had dementia, and she lived with us. And I really felt that I needed to be home to care for her. And then, as we all are aware, 2020 happened, and all of our worlds were turned upside down. And in that year, with everything, with the crisis of COVID, my mom passed in that fall of that year. And so it came about December, and I'll just be honest, it was a tough year. It was a tough year for everybody. And I just prayed. I said, Lord, if there's something that I can be doing, I prayed very specifically. I don't put out a lot of fleeces. I don't take that lightly. I rarely do that. But this was one time that I did. And I really prayed very, very specific. And within 2 days, God answered that prayer very, very specifically. And that prayer was that I really thought that when I prayed this prayer, what I had in mind was Honeysuckle Studios. Maybe my husband, Dave, and I, we could just go be house parents. We could retire and go be house parents. I always just say, but God, he has other plans. And so I prayed, I said, Lord, if there's a work for me to do there in Greenville, that you will have Jim McComas call me. And so within 2 days, Brother Jim called, and I would have loved to have a camera on my face when that call, when I looked down and I seen that phone number. And just a little humor part of it is, I did not tell my husband I had prayed this prayer. So I'm going, hey, honey, what do you think about moving to Greenville, Tennessee, and working there in the pregnancy center? So, but after he wrapped his mind around not having to move our house and garage in a matter of 2 weeks, he was good with that, because he knows I love the ministry and have a heart for this work. So he really wasn't totally shocked about it. And so long story short, I've been here almost 2 years now in Greenville. And so, and God is blessing. We've seen some really wonderful things happening and transitioning, and we've got some neat plans coming up. So God has been very good and very faithful.
Well, I've got to tell you, I applaud you and Mr. Dave too, because he had to be willing to move and
Absolutely
go to another state and let his life be changed. But I suspect many of our listeners are thinking there's always a way to plug in. It started with the volunteer, and then it was the board, but also I think you're really a good model. I think both you and Mr. Dave are a good model, because you were willing to change your lives after you retired, and instead of kind of coasting, if you will. And there's nothing wrong per se with that, but you've really, it's almost the challenge of your lives. You're doing kind of it was something you had kind of dreamed of, and it sounds like a Psalm 37 4 kind of moment, delight yourself in the Lord. He'll give you the desires of your heart. But you are doing such important ministry. And we often don't think of people doing that in retirement, but that's what you guys have done. And so we applaud you, and also encourage our folks listening. God's using you, and God's always willing to use us. You alluded to Moses,
Right.
the last quarter, if you will, of his life, God used him so much. And that's what's, you guys have done that all along, but boy, this is really, really quite helpful what you all are doing right now. So thank you. Thank you, Miss Pam, Miss Crank, for doing that. And Mr. Dave for his part, his willingness as well.
Yes, he is a true supporter of, he does a lot of things behind the scenes that no one realizes. And I could not do what I do without his support. So it's, yes, even though he may not be on the payroll, he's very much involved in this work. And I do encourage people to, the pregnancy centers and, in their local area, check in with them. We could not do what we do without our volunteers. It's critical that we have them, and there's always places to plug in. And so you just never know. I had no idea that God would ever use my life as he has. But I think we just always have to be willing to step up and step out. And I know even for me, my greatest fear was that I'm not qualified, or I don't have experience doing that. But God wants our availability more than he wants anything, and the rest he'll give us, and it'll come.
Absolutely. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are thinking about Sanctity of Human Life, and every year in the United States, we have Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. Really, this is your wheelhouse. Give us a little bit of insight into what we in our churches can do to celebrate on that particular day.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I would encourage pastors to really embrace that Sunday. It has been made to be a political agenda, and we do need those laws, and we need people who work towards those and lobby. But bottom line, it's a biblical principle. So don't shy away from teaching about life and the importance of life. So I think we need to hear it from the pulpit, that our churches are really speaking about how that we are image bearers. And we need to teach that to our little ones. So there's curriculum that's age appropriate for our little ones that you can get through different organizations. But we need to, not that our pastors are beating on people who are in the congregations. That's not what I'm saying. But we need to go back to really valuing human life and the importance of that. So hearing that from the pulpit, obviously the first and biggest thing that people can do is pray. We have really lost in our society the importance of life, of valuing life, the importance of family and strengthening that family. I can't talk, that's my soapbox. I can't talk about that enough. And then just there's ways of having a baby shower for, your pregnancy centers, taking up a special offering. I have done a couple of different times in speaking on Sanctity of Human Life. If they're looking for ideas that are really impactful, at one point in time, I spoke when the abortion rate was about at 55 million lives since 1973 that had been taken. I got 53 roses, and I handed them out throughout the congregation. And then at a certain time after I was done speaking, I had those individuals walk those roses to the front of the church, place them at the cross, and we had a special prayer, and pastor came around. And then when you walked away and you seen those roses that represented those lives lost to abortion, It is hugely, hugely impactful.
Mm.
Another idea that I've done are empty baby shoes. Place those on the altars. You know, these are babies who are not with us today, who didn't get a chance to celebrate a first birthday. Very, very, very impactful, very sobering. Good visuals. Sometimes just things simple like that. Invite a representative from your pregnancy center to come over and share for 5 minutes. You know, I think it would be 5 minutes well worth their time to hear and to learn what goes on in the local pregnancy center.
That's
So there's
wonderful.
just kind of a few ideas.
Great ideas. And so you're saying a lot of visuals are good. You're
Yes.
saying teaching about the importance of life. We're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And also ways that the congregation can get involved through giving, but also through volunteering.
Absolutely.
Lots of ways people can do that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Crank. And how about sharing with us how we can give, how we can support the ministry of Free Will Baptist Family Ministries? What could our listeners do to support them?
If you're talking about wanting to give and how to do that, there's a couple easy ways to do that. As far as you can go online to our webpage, which is hopecentergreenville.com, or you can give through the Free Will Baptist Family Ministries, but they will just have to make sure they designate that to the Hope Center.
Okay.
If they want to go that route, obviously you can snail mail and mail in a check that way is fine. Our address is on our webpage. So there's different fundraisers that we have throughout the years. Some people are familiar with the baby bottle campaign, where we provide the bottles. They can do this campaign at any time throughout their year. The church just decides they fill up these baby bottles, return them, and last year we generated over about $30,000 in just kind of change, you know. So it's amazing what God can do with a little and multiply that. We do have an annual fundraising banquet, and that's in October. I know if you're a ways away and can't attend, but you could always donate towards that as well. So several ways to get involved and to donate.
That's great. And so that website is FWBFM.com, which stands for Free Will Baptist Family Ministries.com. And you could go and learn more about Ms. Crank and the important work that they're doing, see some of the testimonials, some of the activities that are happening. It's a good way to give back. Well, thank you, my friend. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and to join us today.
Thank you, Dr. Moody. I appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you for the important work you guys are doing. You are really making a difference in saving lives.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we want to thank you, our listener. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. If you know someone that might benefit from it, please take this, share it with them. You could do that on social media, Facebook or YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And remember, every little bit we do helps, and we truly are better together. Thank you for joining us today.